Okay, so Alan, you said you were adopted too?
So technically, no, kind of yes. So my mom lost us all as kids, and all my brothers and sisters got adopted out, and I went through the adoption process. And the family that I was with for 4 years, and right before we were finalized, their marriage broke down, and I went back into the system. So, kind of the thing that I wanted to say was, and give kind of an insight to is, the other side of it. I was the one kid that didn't make it through adoption.
Right.
And, I watched my brothers and sisters go into homes that cared for them and loved them. And, well, at the time I thought that. Later on, I found out differently. But as a kid, you see things through kid lenses. But,
Hey, Alan.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop you right for a second here. There's somebody else. There's two of them in the background right now, or in the basement. So I'm going to drop out for a few, and then I am going to bring one of them up, and then later on, a little later, the other one. So
that's good. That's cool. Hold on, my daughters.
Well, I like to say to Alan, first of all, I'm so glad that you came on here and you said that you shared. That's a part of the adoption stories that we don't get to hear that often, and so I feel your pain. I know that feels like the same way that we did feeling adopted. You're left with that feeling of not feeling wanted.
Right, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I would speak. Just let you know, I feel your pain.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so it was kind of crazy as a kid going through that. I was 12 years old when the adoption fell through. I'd been in their home for several years, and it took a lot for me as a child to accept.
Hi, everybody.
Being another family, but then once I got that, I saw their decline in their.
So wait, where are you guys all from? Just out of curiosity.
Cincinnati,
Ohio.
Hold
on for 1 second, Chris. Hold on for 1 second, and we'll get to you. I'm so glad you're here, Chris, but just hold on for 1 second. Sorry, Alan.
But no, then I got rejected. It felt like rejection from another family. So that was 2 families I lost. And then went into my teen years, going back into the system, going back to foster homes, going through United Methodist Children's Home in Columbus, Ohio. All these different.
Do you harbor any abandonment feelings or issues now?
It enhanced that resentment I had for not only, those families, but for my own family. All that rejection, anger and envy from my mother, great and wonderful families. I later found out it was so much different. They were not those great and wonderful parents. But it's just interesting to I've listened to Jeremiah's story. That is very traumatic, Linda. It was but it made me a very strong individual. It made me a very exactly that, a strong individual. I didn't need other support. I learned to live off myself and support myself.
So Krista, I put you down for a second. Just stay there, because I'm trying to rotate people around so we can have more insights on different things. Is that okay with you guys, YouTube watcher and Detroit Soloist?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Hey, Alan, I have a question. So you aged out?
So no,
did you just age out, or?
So at 13, I went on the run and lived on the run, sleeping in bushes and on city steps down in Cincinnati. I went back into a group home when I was at the end of my age of 13, and then went back into eventually my real family. But when I reintegrated with my real family later as a teen, they didn't view me as family. My mother kind of viewed me as a forced option. My immediate family, that was involved, my aunts, uncles, cousins, they didn't see me as family. They see me as just this guy who's living with my mom. I moved out at 14 years old. My mom got me back 3 months later, I was homeless again because her husband that she had just married said I got with a single woman. I didn't want a woman with kids, so she put me to going. I slept on the city steps again. On happenstance, I was walking up the street one day, and some guy yelled across the street to me and one of my stepbrothers, and asked me if we wanted a job. He ended up being a local moving owner of a moving company, and he paid us $7 an hour to work for his moving business. So at 14, I got my own job. I had a job. I held down an apartment, a job, had a couple of adult, female relationships that probably they didn't know that they were messing with a younger guy, but I had to live and learn how to support myself because, once I actually got the thing that I thought I wanted, which was being, back with my family, I was rejected again, and I was just done with it.
Hey, Alan, hang on.
Yeah.
Chris said he cannot hear you. Can you hear him now, Chris?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Something.
Can you hear me, Chris?
Nope, not a word.
Okay, so give me
Anybody
one.
else not hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Oh, I can hear you.
So give me 1 second here.
Hi, you guys.
Hey, is it Nina or Nina?
Nina.
Nina.
Okay, hey Nina. I like your
And
hair.
I was adopted, and
Okay.
my mom, my adopted mom, had Munchausen by proxy.
Oh,
And so
Lord.
I ended up being like medically abused by her majority of my childhood. And then I had two sisters who were older than me, who were adopted after me from Moscow. And like to this day, I still believe that the orphanages lied, saying that they were related to each other just to get as many children out of the Russian orphanages as possible, because they weren't letting America, adopt Russian children anymore in the late 90s. And so they started calling anybody who adopted someone and saying, oh, we found their sister, we found their brothers, take them too. And we took the sister, but not the 5 brothers that they wanted us to. But the corruption in that was just bizarre.
Well, there's similar corruption to that. The adoption agency that my family was adopted through was Adoptee here in Ohio, and my sister was the youngest of us. She was, I think I was like 8 or 9 when she was about 2 or 3, and there was a family that wanted her, but one of my other brothers hadn't been adopted yet, and they told him, they told the family, you can have this kid, but you have to take the brother. We want to keep them together.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
as soon as they got my my toddler sister, I think my brother was 6 or 7 at the time. At 10 years old, they kept him till he was 10, and they sent him to Jamaica. There's a boys reformatory in Jamaica that they sent him to, and he lived there until he was 18 years old.
Oh my God.
So, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about your situation?
Okay, so I don't know, like, my birth parents, thankfully. I saw someone left a comment earlier that if asking like the men if they have any abandonment issues or anything. I don't know how to explain it. I don't feel. I kind of like when I was younger, I felt abandoned from my birth mom, because I have 5 older sisters. Like I have 5 older sisters, and she kept all of them. But for some reason, like after that 5th sister, she just like started drinking and stuff, and to where she was like unfit to keep me like at childbirth. Like at childbirth, I was taken from her and put into foster care, which is where I ended up with the family I am now. Like I was in foster care from like day 3 with this family until right now. And luckily, I grew up in a good, like a Christian, like God-fearing family. Me and Jeremiah are actually from the same neighborhood. So, yeah. And then I also have my half brother upstairs. Same mom, different dad. We were both born in Cleveland.
It's something about that tri-state. I don't care what nobody tells me. It's something about that tri-state. They did a lot of adoptions, a lot of passing around kids, a lot of paperwork was, disheveled, names changed, and then they weren't,
Yeah.
you can't go back. I just
Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky.
Kentucky, Indiana, yep.
They interchange. They interchange all these children. Like I spent some time in Indiana when I was a kid. My one brother, he was sent to live in Kentucky, moved to Indiana, and then they told us he had passed away. When we found him, he was in prison. He was 21 or 20 or 21. But we had thought since he was like 13 years old, he passed away because they told us he passed away.
You know what? And I know Alan's.
Hey, real quick, Jeremiah, just drop me out and let her up. I got to go do something real quick.
And now when
I never had any of that happen to me. I was like always here in Ohio and stuff, but I was bullied like crazy because I grew up in a all white community. Like it's not a majority white community. Like this is an all white.
Mm-hmm.
I went to DYS up in Cleveland when I was a kid. And
Ohio, I don't know, something about Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Missouri, that tri-state. I don't know what happened in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. It's like their adoption situation with the birth certificates, because you remember before we had computers and stuff, everything was manual. So when I got my first birth certificate, the name had my adopted parents' name on it, and their names were misspelled. My name was misspelled. And then when I went to go, they put the computers in, of course, and then I went to go get my birth certificate. It was something entirely different. I was like, I looked at the lady, I was like, who is this? So well, that's you.
Yeah.
Well, and I was allowed to see my birth mom for like the first 3 years of my life. I was adopted at birth. And then because my mom had me and she was like an 18-year-old heroin addict. My dad was like 29 years older and in a punk band. So like, it was rough from the start. But when my mom visited me, she was seeing this guy who ended up raping and murdering his neighbor or something, like disastrously fucked up. And then my adopted parents cut all communication, and I wasn't allowed to even know where she was or anything. And then when I was like 14, she found me on MySpace, and we've had a great relationship ever since. And I have 2 little half brothers I'm really close to. And I mean, it's really crazy how much I'm like her without her raising me. Like we're the exact same person, the hardcore punk, like pinup modeling and roller derby, and like it just makes sense where I come from now. I was always like that weird little punk kid in school that no one liked. So like with like blue hair since I was 5.
I love roller derby.
Yeah.
Roller derby still exists?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's been coming back big time.
I
started being around roller derby in what, babe? Like 2008, 2009.
Yeah. Those women are hardcore who do that stuff. I break all my bones.
It broke me. That broke me.
Has anybody ever come in contact with their biological siblings and you notice that even though you didn't grow up together, your voice sounds just like theirs? I sound just like
my brother. 10 years
tell us apart. We didn't grow up together. Sound just alike.
Me and my half brother, we have the same laugh and the same person, like the same sense of humor.
Yeah, genetics is
okay. When I met my birth mother, I was 20, 21 years old, and they showed up at my work, and I met my aunt and my cousin first. I looked at her and I was like, my boss had warned me because I was in the back room and she came in and told me that these people were out here want to talk to you. And I was like, okay. And so it was my adoption stories are pretty crazy. I walked around the corner and I looked at her and I had to just like went, because I saw myself. And then she talked, and then my cousin talked, and the way how my cousin was moving and her mannerisms and her cadence in her talk, and even like the weird accents that we have, because like my birth family is from Mississippi and Texas, so they have a really kind of unique accents, and even though I wasn't raised around it, I kind of talk like them.
Right.
And
no, and I first met my mom, I remember I was 14 and I went to this restaurant and we were wearing the same outfit. We were both wearing like a wife beater, leather jacket, like black jeans and like combat boots and oversized sunglasses. I was like, oh, you are my mom. There you are. Like, okay, this makes sense. You know?
Caitlin, do you ever see, Caitlin, do you have other biological brothers and sisters or?
Yeah. I have 4 younger siblings which live with my mom. But then I have she's the second oldest, so she's younger than me. But she was adopted by someone else because my mom was on drugs.
Okay.
But then like we're still similar. But then she's raised in Derby. I don't know if you know where that is. But
I do.
Yeah.
That's in England, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to live in London, so I know where that is.
It's like a couple hours from me, but yeah.
Well, last night we kind of went over some things about adoption, and I was taking notes, and so I kind of wanted to move a little slow today because we're gonna, go as long as we can, and we really want to give everybody a chance to talk. Sharing everyone's stories like this is amazing because, we as adopted people, we always feel like we're different. Nobody's story is like ours. And it's amazing that when you get adopted people all together, though, we all have something in common. We have a lot in common. And so can each of us just go around and share like what are with us a couple things been one of the hardest things for you to still to this day deal with. I'll give you an example. For me, I have really bad abandonment issues. And I feel like even if I'm in the room with someone and if they go to another part of the house, I still feel like, where you going? So can we just go and like everybody like share what things like you kind of like drag around with you? What about you, Alan?
So I think I kind of share your sentiment there. I aged, I aged, to adulthood without very much, without much to go on as being an adult. I just did things. There's 3 kinds of individuals in the world. There's, active, inactive, and reactive.
Right.
Reactive.
That's what I became, and I can't get past that in life. I'm reactive. I kind of let things happen to the point to where now I have to do something.
Right.
But all the decisions were always, outside of my control.
Yeah.
So, so I just had to react to whatever in life came. And so I think the biggest thing that I can't get past, and I probably never will, is, learning those 3 traits and knowing which one I was.
Yeah.
What about you, Nina?
Okay, I have a question when it comes to that, because that's how I feel as well. I'm very reactive. I let things build. I try to tuck it down, and then it just like fireworks all over everywhere. Do you guys find yourselves doing that?
Yes, 100%. And my like abandonment issues were really difficult because not only did my first mom not want me and able to take care of me, but my adopted mom constantly told me how she regretted adopting me, but not my sisters. And the thing is, my 2 adopted sisters were related to each other, so they say. So the orphanages said, like,
DNA could figure that one out.
Right. So what about you, Chris? What's one of the things that you find as the hardest that you kind of like drag around with you being adopted?
I'd have to say I kind of have abandonment issues. because I don't know. It feels okay. So how do I explain this? So my mom, I mean our mom. Here's my little brother, half brother.
Hella G, me too.
So our mom, like, she didn't want us. Like, why not? You know,
Yeah.
like you knew you were pregnant and you still like did drugs, drank alcohol. I don't talk loud. So like she did that things with us, and then she couldn't keep us, and she's never reached out to us like since then. I'm 27, he's 22. Like she knows that we exist, you know. So
yeah, that would definitely have to make you have a real bad abandonment issues. And so how about you, Caitlin? What's one of the things that you find?
Before we get into that, Alan, I pushed you down for a second, so just hang tight. I'm going to bring YouTube Watcher up because Alan gave his opinion or his thoughts on this question, so I want everyone to be able to answer it. So.
Okay. Terrific.
Go ahead. You guys can go ahead.
Go ahead, Caitlin.
Okay. I'm also like really reactive. I have bad anger issues, but like people at school, especially adults, always tell me that like I'm lying about it. It really hurts.
Right.
I also have bad abandonment issues. I don't get close to anyone. Because I always get scared like people are gonna leave. Because it's happened before with people, they've stayed in my life for years and they're just like get up and block me and everything after saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna stay here, I'm gonna be there for a year and everything. I also can't get close to my adopted family, and it hurts because it's also like I want to talk to my mum, like my adoptive mum, about adoption because I have so many questions, but she's scared that I'm gonna leave her for my birth mum. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, Caitlin? My mom had that same fear that because I always wondered, and she always knew that someday I was going to meet her, and she was always afraid that I was going to leave her. But you know what? I see my adoptive mom way more. Like, I haven't even spoken to my birth mom in like 10 years.
She is the opposite for me.
Well, yeah, in your situation was a lot different. I had like the best adoptive family. I had everything I wanted.
Oh, good.
So yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's a nice thing too about this too, is we learn about each other's different stories and how things go and whatnot. You know, like because I knew there was adopted people that didn't have good lives, and then I know people like me. I got saved from having a bad life because I was adopted.
And like I live with him still because he has MS and he's in a wheelchair, and I'm his full-time caregiver now because he's all I had growing up. He's the only one out of 4 parents who attempted to even love me, you know, and so I owe him that, I feel. And so, yeah.
So yeah, that's how I feel with my adoptive parents.
Right. So you watch your you heard the question was you know, what can you tell us something that you find really hard for you to overcome? I had said abandonment.
I think codependency issues just in relationships after my abandonment issues has always been a problem.
Yeah.
You know, like just I very much so will intertwine myself with the people around. A very hard time letting go of them and having that like, you know, differentiation of 2 different people instead of just one when I'm in like a relationship with someone. It's very difficult.
Watcher, can you please share with us like you know, like what she was saying and how you were telling us last night?
Well, yeah.
Who are you talking to?
Me. I don't know. It's hard to put in words the things that.
Is someone talking that I can't hear?
Yeah, someone's
talking. He can't hear me now.
Oh, I can hear him.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
I can hear you too.
I can hear you.
I can hear me.
Okay, so go ahead. YouTube Watcher, please.
Wait for him to finish shuffling.
We're a deck of cards.
I know.
Shuffling.
Okay, so
I don't know. Yeah, but sure, the abandonment issues, the depression, the sadness, the loneliness, the feelings of, you know, flying solo through the world because nobody understands, you know, because you never really meet a whole lot of people that understand what you're going through, right?
No,
So
I
yeah,
know a lot of people.
you start, you know, finding other ways to cope and deal.
Yeah, I was a heroin addict for like 10 years because of all of that, you know?
Let me ask you guys a question. How many people, by a show of hands, because yesterday we were talking, and I love what YouTube watchers said. I'll say it again, that he was trying to help. I thought I was trying to find the words to something, and I found out that I wasn't feeling it. How many people grew up always, now you can see that you didn't really, you took your feelings and suppressed them. I don't use my feelings for anything like that. And so, show of hand, yeah. And that's something that adopted children, adults, people, that's something that we all have in common is we stop feeling and we shut down. And I think resentment, I don't know how you guys feel, and I hope you can share with me. I start to become resentful towards other people that don't notice that I don't feel anything right now. I've shut down. Does anybody notice, you know? How about anybody else? Have you had, especially in your relationship, noticed that in relationships?
Oh, absolutely. Like I very much so end up finding that I end up in relationships with people who have also been through traumatic things, and then something called trauma bonding, which is very dangerous, but it was the only way my early relationships I could really deal with it is someone who's as mentally fucked up from trauma as I am, because someone who hasn't gone through anything like that couldn't really handle my panic attacks and my outbursts that will just spontaneously happen, God knows when, you know. And my birth mom was a heroin addict, and then I had my adoptive mom with Munchausen by proxy feed me pharmaceuticals since I was 3 years old, and I just got off all of those for the first time 3 years ago, not even. And this first time I've been off all drugs, and I don't know how to handle my emotions. I don't know how to handle those things because I was taught since I was 3, if you don't like what you're feeling, take a pill and lay on the couch for 3 days.
And you know what? I want to say that I think that I'm gonna shuffle around. I do agree that you didn't know how to deal with this, and this is why Jeremiah is doing this show, because it's given us new tools. It's given us, you know, different ways to look at things, and like I see how Jeremiah handles different things. I've listened to YouTube tell me what worked for him and what didn't. I'm listening to Caitlin to share with things, you know, that's working for her, and I'm listening to you, Nina, and Chris too. And so Jeremiah made this panel available so that we can come on here. We're learning different things, because I feel the same way. I get scared sometimes because I get so angry and so upset, and I feel so frustrated. And people are saying, well, you're feeling something. And I have to remind people, that's not a feeling. Those are actions. Those are things. Those are not good feelings. Whatever you think of those are just emotions. When I start shutting down mentally and emotionally, I get terrified. And I don't know how to explain that to someone. And so this is working. This is like so great. I hope that we can continue, you know, talking, and I hope everybody's getting different tools of this and because there was a word that you used that I had never heard before, Nina. So if you don't mind going back and sharing that word, when you said something about, it's almost like codependency. What was the word that you used?
Yeah, trauma bonding is where like two people who go through traumatic things will have a destructive relationship due to just not being mentally capable of taking care of yourself. And so, you know, if neither of you can take care of yourselves, how can you take care of each other? And it turns into something very toxic. But that's what my relationships have been, because I can't be with someone who doesn't understand what going through something traumatic is. My fiance passed away 5 years ago, and from an OD. And I now am terrified to get close to anyone in fear of losing them again, because I've been given up, I've been thrown away, I've lost people, I've had more friends die than I have living, you know. And so I'm just at this point, I don't even want to let someone in my life. I don't like, I have no friends anymore. I have no people, because I am that scared of losing them again or being thrown away
So
to the
just
side.
by a show of hands, and if you guys want to go into it, you can. Just by a show of hands, how many people you knowingly know that you ran that person off because of the adoption, because you felt like you couldn't? Yeah.
Oh yeah, one way or another.
No. I don't.
I've sabotaged relationships.
Self-sabotage, yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, Chris.
I hate myself for it after, you know, and then that's the cycle.
Jeremiah.
You might want to mute your mic because we can hear every word.
Oh, I sometimes I forget I unmute myself. That's my bad.
No, you're fine. At the bottom, there's a mute button.
Yeah, I'll mute it.
All right, sounds good.
Caitlin, I wanted to ask you a question. Do you find that they have resources or therapy and things like that available in your country or at school or anything like that for people that have been adopted? Or, because I don't know if things have changed since we've grown up.
I honestly don't think there's that much. At primary school, I was allowed one-on-one talking with one of the teaching assistants who were adopted, but I have gone for counselling and I've been turned away because they said, "Oh, you've not got enough issues. You've not got this. You've not got that." But then, like, social worker and my mum say I've got too many issues, and they're just using it to turn. They're just saying I've not got enough because there's too many. They don't want to deal with it.
Well, that's the problem with a lot of doctors, is they want to categorize your pain. They want to be able to say you have this, you have that, when like it can be such a way of things that compile that you just need to work through that don't go into a certain disorder, you know, that don't go certain.
No, we have multitudes of things going on.
Right.
That they don't have a medical code. Like when you do your billing, they have codes for every little tiny little thing. They don't have a code for adoption issues.
Right.
You know, they want to break it down to anxiety and depression and
This is why it's very imperative that we continue this talking, that we came together like this. Like I said, once again, I'm so thankful for Jeremiah, because they don't have a category for adoption. They don't have any type of labeling, like, you know, the trauma from being adopted. You know, we've been thrown into a pile and then been thrown into this pile and adopted over here. I don't, like I said, I've not been adopted, I've been adapted. To something.
Amen.
You know,
we are very adaptive.
Caitlin, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Do you keep a journal? Do you write?
I did, but it just turns out to me getting angry and then ripping it up.
All right, because when I was your age, I remember writing a lot of poetry and things like that, just to spill my guts, you know.
Yeah, I have some notes on my phone, but that's it.
See, what I started doing was not even writing it down, because, like, you know, it's hard for me with my thoughts going so fast to put on paper, and just videotaping myself talking to myself my issues, so that I can look back and see, like, while I'm in that panic attack, while I'm in that state what my mindset is and how I can work on that.
So
that's a good idea.
How do you guys feel if Jeremiah's put this forum together? How would you guys feel like Jeremiah doing something like this, coming together like once a week?
I'd
or
love
maybe
that.
every 2 weeks? Because I think that this is very helpful.
Yeah.
Like
I
over video chat, right? Not in person.
No, like on here. My soul needed it.
That's what I figured. I was just.
No,
So
I think
Jeremiah ought to make a Discord group for us all. I think that would be
I
cool.
agree. Yeah, I think that's
Discord would be awesome.
So let me
like,
ask you this question. When you meet someone going into a relationship, or even if it's just a friend, how long does it take for you to tell that person that you're an adoptee? Do you tell them right away, or?
Yeah,
well,
I do.
Okay, so with me, I'm like the only Black person in Holmes County, and Jeremiah can kind of like vouch for this because he's from the same community, and so everyone knows I'm adopted. But sometimes people will forget that I'm adopted, and so I have to remind them and be like, "Hey, I'm adopted. My family didn't." Yeah. But usually, just like seeing me walking around town, and be like, "Oh, this kid's obviously adopted."
What about you, Nina?
I can go forever without telling anybody.
Yeah, like I don't think it comes up too often. The thing is, I went through so many other traumatic things in my life on top of my adoption that are even like more painful than the adoption was. Like when I was younger, from the time I was 12, my adopted mom just didn't want me in the house. She kept my sisters, but she put me in residential treatment facilities from the time I was 12 to 17 all over the country. 90% of them were abusive. Like one of them got shut down by the FBI 2 weeks after I ran away from it when I was like 15 because they were physically and sexually abusing all of us. And so like, I feel like, you know, once I open that can of worms with someone, like I really have to trust them. I really have to know them to be able to get to that point to talk about any of it. Because once one of them opens, they're all connected and it just starts pouring. And so like, you know, it takes a while for me to get there, I feel.
YouTube watcher, you were saying that sometimes you just don't tell them at all.
No, why? Why should I? I mean, I'm not going to bring it up if they don't.
That's a guy thing.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because what do you like? What Krista? What do you find yourself doing when you get into a relationship with somebody? Is that something that usually comes up on the first or second date?
It kind of depends on how the dates are going, how I feel about the person. My husband's sitting here listening and watching, learning, and like everything you guys are saying, he's like, okay, that explains that. That explains that. That explains that. Okay. So, yeah. So, but yeah, I tend to do that so that way when my little issues come out, people tend to have a better understanding where I'm at.
I usually do that. I'll tell somebody when my little idiosyncrasies come out and somebody's I can tell them, or when I'm feeling really sensitive about something, and then I'll notice that everybody else, that's something normal for them, and they're looking at me like
we're not.
Okay.
My nickname is Psycho Me, and that was given to me by my best friend Danelle and one of my best guy friends, Darvin. And they literally turned and looked at me and go, "Oh my God, you're psycho," because I was having one of my adopted, I've had it kind of type of meltdowns, and they're like, "Whoa!" So yeah, and they both knew
those meltdowns when you said I've had enough and I'm walking the hell out of here. That meltdown.
Yeah. I've had more jobs than I'm old.
No, my fight or flight, like I do. It'll happen nowhere. I can just be sitting in a restaurant or sitting in my room with my boyfriend. Like it doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'll just get that panic, like that just squeezing my heart. I can't breathe. I need to run. And like it'll just come out of nowhere, and I'll just start crying my eyes out, and I just don't how to stop it or when
you
it
can't really explain it either.
Right. Exactly. And for people who witness it, you look damn crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And
Caitlin,
I went to the dentist.
Caitlin, you know that
Trust-
feeling, Caitlin?
because you know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, Caitlin, how is that for you? Do you notice that maybe some of the kids, you're still in school,
Okay,
huh?
so before Caitlin answers, I want Nina to know, I have to keep shuffling around because there's somebody else in the background. Alan's back there, so I'm just gonna keep shuffling people around. But Detroit and YouTube, they know kind of where I want this to go because we had a long conversation last night, so that's why they
like 4 hours.
So that's why I'm keeping you two up there because you guys know what direction I want to take this. So.
And they're doing a fantastic job. I'll just say that.
Thanks, guys.
She's doing a good job. I'm trying to be quiet for the most part because I said a lot yesterday.
So I kind of wanted to address a few things I watched as you guys were talking. So, and one thing that Nina just was talking about. So when I was a kid, I kind of suffered in similar situations. You know, I kind of was, I kind of just did things that was kind of beyond my control. So I was labeled impulse control disorder. What people didn't see was, you know, shit built up. And then I'd be sitting in class, and my teacher, I remember my teacher came over and knocked my pencil on the ground, and I looked at him like, "Are you kidding me?" So, and I went to bend over to pick it up, and he like walked a little too close and got a little too close to me, and my head got close when I was leaning down to you know, inappropriately. And I just lost my shit. I got up, flipped my freaking desk, told him he was a pervert, always acted gay in the classroom. I thought he was a freaking pervert. And I went to walk out.
You just unleashed on him.
Oh, dude, I lost my shit. I was quiet in class. Nobody expected that out of me. I sit back, I observed, I kept my mouth shut. You know, and it was, a learned
we
thing.
do as adopted kids. We sit back, we observe. Yeah,
well,
we do
you
that.
know, and that was another thing that I wanted, you know, I wanted to address. So, you know, every room I ever walked in as a kid, I knew I didn't belong. I knew that I was different in some way, shape, or form. You know, I was out of place. Somebody else was, you know, I was in somebody else's world. You know, I was in my foster family's world. You know, that was their family. When I went to their Christmas parties, that was their family. I was immediately different. Even if they treated me no different, I was immediately different, and I had that in my mind. I looked for differences, and those differences stacked. And what would happen is, you know, when things would happen, I would react to them. Sometimes maybe a little bit too much. You know, I would take it out of context a little bit further because in my mind, you must have done that because I'm not really family, or you know. My brain was trained to realize that I was not there. I did not belong. And you know, I have a lot of PTSD still to this day with you know, with that is, you know, and now instead of it being foster families, you know, my real brothers and sisters have came back into the picture. None of us ever really talk. We have the ability to congregate and have a family and be a family. But my brother is a Newkirk, my sister's a Newkirk, my other brother is a Singly. I'm a Relford. We're not, you know, even though we're blood, we were little kids together. Today, after suffering through 30 years of separation and anxieties, they are them, I am me. I know we share DNA, but we can't get close like that. You know, I love it. You know, like I have all.
So let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Let me kind of go around here for a minute, because I'm going to ask like about three different questions, and I kind of want to go around to get everybody's opinion if y'all don't mind. Let's start with Caitlin, and then we'll go to YouTube watcher and go on down to Krista, Allen, and then Nina. So, and if you don't feel comfortable answering, we could just, you know, just say next. You know, have any of you been diagnosed with any type of social disorder, depression, or anything like that? And if so, what are you currently doing now to deal with it? And how much of that is tied in, do you think, into your adoption? What about you, Caitlin? We'll start with you.
I haven't been like clinically diagnosed, but my mum, she works in the health kind of stuff, and so she knows a bit, but she says that I have a lot of issues. She's not too sure what they are, and she says that I have developed an eating disorder, and she's really worried about it, but there's other stuff, but not too sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us. An eating disorder is something that's really serious. I developed that very early on. I believe that definitely has something to do with adoption.
Yeah.
That's something we either overeat or we undereat, because that's something that we can, take control over.
You can control it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I thank you for sharing that with us, and I really hope that you can find somebody that you can talk to about that, because we don't want that to turn into a really bad situation.
And Caitlin, I'll give you my info later too if you ever just want someone to talk to. Okay, hon?
Thank you. Thank
Real
you.
cool.
I was going to say the same thing. She can always reach out to me too.
Brave of her.
I'm gonna
Brave
have
of
to
you
go
to come on here and
soon.
say that, because
So
when it
brave
comes down
of her.
to eating disorders and things like that, people really don't like to talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a hard one.
So, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to go soon because it's almost 3 a.m.
Oh.
So, one thing I noticed growing up is, like, I never felt I got the attention I needed.
Right.
You crave, as a kid, you crave attention, and it's not an individual thing. It's everybody craves it. So, when I was younger, I remember,
especially any child.
right. And I remember thinking that I was selfish for wanting, I was treated like I was selfish for wanting attention. And I remember I was with this really good family. It was the family that was going to adopt me, actually. And
okay.
What's up, Jeremiah?
So somebody was in the back room. I'm not just going to let anybody up here without them looking. They have to look into the private chat and answer a question there before I let them up. So just so they're aware of that.
Cool.
But I was made to feel like I was. Hold on for a second. Yes, you can use it for a minute. For a minute, you're grounded. I know. But anyways, I okay, go ahead. You can. Okay, yes, it's yours. Go. Yes, you can have it back. Sorry. My daughter, she's nonverbal, and she has cerebral palsy, so she was grounded from her iPad. So that was her excitement.
I know. I was giggling about the father-daughter dynamic in there. That's why I was giggling. Yes, you can have it. Go. Do this same crap.
Go right back in my room. She only got in my room because I was out here. Anyway, but I remember being a kid, and I tried to think, how can I get attention when I'm not getting it? And I remember there was one time I was so upset. It was over, as the adoption started fracturing this family. I don't want to go into too many specifics because I do love them both. They're really good people, but together they just didn't work.
Yeah.
And because they didn't work, we didn't work. But I remember thinking to myself, well, I'll just make people think I'm going to kill myself. And I remember getting a knife and going into these steps and sitting there like, well, I'll just cut a little deep, just so they'll notice. And they didn't notice. They were completely oblivious to my feelings. And I remember when they did find me with a knife, they were mad that I had a knife. They didn't care that I had cut myself.
Exactly.
And that made me go so much more crazy that I went and I ran off. I remember I hitchhiked. This was about I don't know, about 100 miles north. I remember I hitchhiked. I was 11 years old, and I hitchhiked from Piqua, Ohio, all the way down to Cincinnati, thinking I'll just walk around until I find my family. I'll just go back to my real family. They'll give me attention. And of course, you know, at 11 years old, I remember this lady. She had this like old motorcycle. She drove me for like the last, I don't know, 20 miles into Norwood, and she was like, "Do you know where your family's?" Like, I was like, "Yeah, just take me to the McDonald's," you know. And I remember McDonald's, and then realizing like, where the heck am I, you know? But,
yeah.
And even then, I thought I must get some attention from this. You know, my foster parents have to know I'm gone. You know, I remember sitting there for, I don't know, a few hours, and then I walked over to the lady that worked at McDonald's and said, "Hey, I ran away from home, and I think I don't belong here." And they called the police. Police came, and they were like, "Why'd you leave? You know, what happened? Did they hurt you? Did you do this?" And I was like, "No." And I went back there, and they were just oblivious to why I did anything, you know. And I tried to be honest with them. Like, they were good, loving people, you know. They were really good people, but they were completely oblivious to my feelings because they couldn't understand where I was coming from. You know.
Hi, you guys. I had to break away for 1 second. Hold on, Alan. I had to break away for 1 second, you guys, to answer some of the questions that the people were asking us. So I kind of want to like get back on track with the questions that I had, because I still wanted to hear from Krista and Nina, and I want and YouTuber, please, and I want us to focus in on when a person gives us an answer like an eating disorder, because that's something that's very serious. And so I want Caitlin, I want you to know that you are supported. We're here for you. And
thank you.
I want to hear, as we're moving along throughout the evening, I want to hear more about that, if you don't mind. Krista, please share with a word or something that you noticed that has really become that one thing for you that you identify with as being adopted.
Disconnected.
Disconnected? Yeah.
Just not feeling like I belong anywhere necessarily. Growing up, I would jump from friend group to friend group to friend group. I never really had a good, solid friends where you would like lifelong until after I have literally like one friend that I met in my early 20s, the Danelle that nicknamed me. Other than that, most of my friends have been in and out. They I gotta think about how I want to say this. I don't feel included, and it's not to their bad necessarily,
right?
You know. But as an adoptee, I've always felt kind of left out.
Yeah.
And that's where I get my disconnected. It's like, even though if I'm out with people, I may not necessarily always be like right there, whether it be mentally or physically. It's like, I'm glad I'm out with them. It's like, I'm happy being alone, but then I like to be around people. Then I like to be around people and be alone at the same time.
And what about you too? Right.
Other than that laundry list I listed earlier, my big issues have always been anxiety, and I've always had issues with like separation anxiety. You know, people that I love, I want near me and real close. Otherwise, I feel abandoned again. You know, or some form of that. As far as treatment and things like that, I stopped going to the doctors after being on medication for pushing 20 years. And yeah, they don't care. I had lost a job and didn't have the insurance, and I owed the psychiatrist or whoever doctor $50 and he wouldn't write me another script because of that. So I had to hard kick Xanax, and
Right.
well, yeah, lost 30 pounds, and that was fun.
Yeah, I've
So-
gone through Xanax withdrawal, and that's one of the only withdrawals besides alcohol that can kill you because of the seizures and everything. That's brutal. Yeah.
That's right. Everybody thought I was on all kinds of other stuff because I was losing weight real fast. I wasn't
noticed that,
sleeping
yeah.
much.
That was the most
know?
like dangerous
And-
withdrawal out of any drug, just because of the part of the
Yeah,
brain.
What about
that
you,
was-
Leah?
That was like 2 weeks of hell, getting over that.
Right.
Oh, mine was like a month
So
of
how-
hell. Yeah.
So, by hands, how many people has actually, when you've gone to the doctor and say you're stressed out or you're going through something, you're having anxiety, do you bring up do you tell your doctors, or do you ever bring up to your psychiatrist, therapist, or your family doctors that I am an adopted child, and maybe some of the things that I'm experiencing is from that? And do you get a resistance from them looking at you like, but you're an adult now?
Right.
I get that a lot. People will tell me, get over it.
Yeah.
You're not a kid anymore.
So
How do you deal with that? How do you feel about that, Caitlin, when you're going through something and you see like you're still young, but you knew like at a very young age that you were adopted?
Yeah.
Do you find people telling you to get over it?
Yeah. At primary school, I was actually told by a teacher, "You're not adopted. You're just lying about it. You're just an attention seeker."
Oh my
And
god.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow. That is the
And then, yeah.
That's nice.
And she told me that I needed to get over it and stuff like that.
I'm sorry, but for the audacity of an adult to say that,
Mhm.
And
Child.
a teacher,
I
nonetheless.
was 9 or 10.
oh my god. Sorry,
teacher
that
needs
just like enrages
Yeah.
me.
teacher needs to watch this, because the teacher will start to see that, look at her age and you're telling her to get over something, and then look at me and I'm so much older. So that's letting you know, if
Yeah,
because
we
she
get
didn't have
over older.
before, she's still dragging that on. So I'm sorry that they said that to you, and I'm so glad that we have an opportunity to speak. Maybe it can, save her a lot of years of doing what we've done. I just feel like I've been stepping over my own feet, and I felt like at some point that nobody even asked us anything, there was no support groups. Does anybody know of any adopted support groups anywhere?
Actually, I looked them up online since that topic came up, and there are some Facebook adoption groups.
Yeah, I was in a
So,
couple
I
of
don't
them a
know, it's-
few 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, for the Facebook groups, you're gonna have to be go in and see what they're like, and then decide if it's something that's gonna actually help you, or that's one of the hazards about these things. But there are some that are specifically for adoptees. There was a lot of support for adoptive parents.
Yeah, that's what I was
We
going
may
to say.
consider getting into those groups so we
So-
can help them out before any of this happens, so they understand what they're actually really getting into.
I want to say something. I want to say thank you to Police Accountability Report coming in here. At some point, you will see me on there.
What was that, Jeremiah?
Oh, I said I want to say.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I
A
said.
little bit breaking up.
I said I want to say thanks to Police Accountability Report for coming in here. At some point, you will probably see me on one of their shows as well. So just letting you guys know.
So I want everybody to kind of like take a little breather, stretch up or something, because I really want to ask you guys a very serious question. We talked about this last night, and I'm gonna bring it up now, and I'll probably bring it up later on. But I really want everyone's honest opinion, and because I know that it's been on a few people's minds about celebrities adopting children. And this has been something that we've seen in the media. This has been something that, you know, I've seen through over the years. And so I just kind of want to talk about it and see where you're at with that. And I'll ask later on too. So does anybody want to talk about it?
You know my opinion on that. I don't know how far into details I should go on my opinion on that one.
My opinion on that is I'm okay with that, but then when you want to go and make it public and use it to make yourself look better for whatever reason, if you truly do it from your heart, I'm okay with that, but you shouldn't have to flaunt it either.
That and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Detroit and YouTube watcher. I am going to say this. I don't have to, but I'm going to say this. I have an issue with these big time celebrities, right? Going, not that they're adopting kids, because they're helping kids, right? But the fact that they think they have to go overseas to do it, right? Because if you think about it, most people's hearts are for the homeless in other countries, the kids that are, you know, starving. But what about the kids here? You know, was it more or less a publicity stunt?
A lot of that too, Jeremiah, is the age range of kids that are available here. Most people, when they want to adopt, they would prefer to adopt a baby, and that rather than adopt an older child, which is part of Alan's issue, I would imagine, because he kept going through the cycle and through the cycle. It's because as he got older, it was harder to get adopted. That's just how the system is.
So there's 2 points to, you know, that what you just said, Krista. So most people want a child. You know, they want to raise a child in their own, you know, in their own image, in their own way. They want to mold that child. They don't want a child, that's already been traumatized. But then on the other side of that is there are some families out there. I had a foster family when I was, I think I was 7. They taught me how to pour concrete. 7 years old, pouring concrete. I remember.
That's slave labor.
Well, so this family started off with a 2-bedroom ranch style home. Over a course of, you know, like 10 or 15 years, they adopted 2 of their foster kids. But over the course of, you know, 20, 25 years, that 2-bedroom ranch style house was like 17 rooms. They had a theater room, and we were allowed to use it all. You know, we got to enjoy it. All of it was created by the children that they had in there. So they typically liked teenagers, and they would call it doing your chores. And they used them for all that manual labor. Dug a pool, built a barn, you know, add an addition, you know, add a game room, you know, all these things. Cut the grass. They had like freaking 20 acres of grass to cut. You know, they ended up getting in a lot of trouble. They went to doing a lot of illegal stuff.
That is absolutely not okay. And you know what? When we were talking about this earlier with Jeremiah and with Chris on, and talking about Sabrina and the other people that have been adopted into the Amish Mennonite type lifestyles, my husband kind of said it, and I agree with him. It's child labor is what it is. They want the extra hands, and that's what's available, so that's what they are going to take.
And then on the other flip side of that whole thing is you get these people that they want young women, and for inappropriate reasons. And anybody that's been through the system knows, you know, rape and molestation is huge in it, and it's always that nice couple that's doing it. You know, that one that could pass the background check flying colors. I don't know if any of you from Ohio and you remember DeMarcus Faisal case. Does anybody know anything about
that? I remember that.
Faisal case, you know, this family, they did it for just the money. You know? And when it got too hard, they beat this kid to death. Well, I'm sorry, they beat this kid to almost death, then put it, and he was like 6 or 7. They tied him up with duct tape and they put him in a closet and took a vacation and came back. He was still breathing, so they burned him alive and then chopped him up and spread him out.
Yeah.
This was a foster family, and because it happened after so many reports of abuse on this family, child welfare, the light got shown on them, and so caseworkers started quitting. There's less foster parents. Once the lights flipped on, all these parents that was raping kids, using kids for manual labor, they started saying, oh well, now we don't really want to do this now that the world is looking at us. So
Right.
I think that's exactly why they go overseas. They want to go where it's quiet. Nobody can say nothing, because now the kids are moved from where they belong. They can get the children that they want. I think a lot of celebrities, they'll pick African or these Cambodian children because it gives them a different level of status. They do it, they do it for race relations and PR, and then they can say, well, I'm not a racist, but look at, all these kids are over here 90% of the year, 10% of the year, they're actually here with us. I'm not a huge fan of the adoption from overseas, but that's why I think they do it. They adopt from overseas because the loopholes are bigger, and I don't even think it's as expensive. You can go nab a kid out of an orphanage, and you're hailed as being a wonderful, blessed person. Get them over here, where that same process could have cost 10 times as much, could have taken a lot longer. They might have relaxed vetting issues over there, where that you might have had issues here.
To go and take the kid.
Right. And then when people like with Nina, families can get sober and change their life, but they can't find their children now. Why? Because they're in America and their name has changed. Now they have a social security number. Now they're American. Yeah. And now if they want a legal battle, they have to come over here, which they probably don't, because they were probably taken from a poor family. They can't afford coming here, then have to hire a lawyer, find a place to live, just to try to get their kids back. Which by the time it's all said and done, their kids are going to age out, and they're dead.
Yep.
Well, and when I was in all the treatment facilities growing up, I'd have to say at least 85% of the kids were adopted.
Foster kids, foster children are the worst, man. These foster kids, they age out, and it's just there was these two kids I was in a foster home with. Their name was Joe and Monty with 8, and they were adopted. And when they turned 18, their parents were like, "We're done." By the time they were teenagers, the parents were already done, but they were committed till they were 18. And once they hit 18, they didn't know their birth families. Back then we didn't have an ability to really find our birth birth families. So they were stuck out in the world, not prepared for it, and there was a lot of resentment from the people that they did know, and zero support from them. So I mean, birth fam or adoptive and aged out foster kids, my heart goes out to them because they go into the world unprepared.
Yeah. I wanna stop for a second, and I wanna bounce off of what Jeremiah had come in here to talk about. Someone had asked what Jeremiah and what we were doing to help with people that have been adopted, and so I want to answer that real quick. First of all, Jeremiah doing this panel here has really helped a lot, because it's opening up channels, it's opening up conversations that we're able to have that we weren't having before. I think that hopefully we're walking away from here with more tools that we can use for the times that we get angry, frustrated, maybe want to harm ourselves, or we just want to walk away or give up. And for myself, what I do is I do public speaking a lot for the homelessness down on Skid Row community. And I do notice that even though people are suffering with housing issues, there's a lot of people that have been adopted. And I had no idea that the numbers were very high for men. I always, for some reason, thought, as being a female, that it was a lot of females that were giving up for adoption, because I noticed that a lot of people always wanted a little girl, you know? They wanted a little girl, they wanted a young baby, but they were always looking for girls. I had no idea that the numbers were so high with males going through adoption. And I think that the males probably got shifted around more than girls did, because once they get a girl, they were happy, you know, especially if they adopted us when we were young. And just like what Alan was saying, the getting shifted around, and then to the point where you don't even get adopted, that's painful. I know that hurts.
Okay, so Detroit, look at the private chat. I do have somebody that comes in and leaves messages or questions, which I told him to. So if you guys want to address that question, so what happens to someone that ages out? Do they just give them a boot?
So, you mind if I answer that?
Yeah, that's for anybody.
Okay, so I noticed in the chat earlier said I overtalked Caitlin, which I apologize for. I didn't realize I'd done that. But so when a kid ages out, and my son, you know, please look unkindly towards me, because I have no control over this. But my son ages out of foster care in September 2nd, he turns 18, and so there, you know, this answer is kind of two-part, because right now with the COVID-19, they're changing it a little bit. So they're extending age out with some kind of independent living options, I think, to help support age outs, or they're keeping them in the homes a little bit longer because of the COVID-19, so that they're not immediately homeless.
Right.
But so in my experience, and this is, you know, a lot of it somewhere, a little bit of this and that, but aging out, what typically happens at 18 years old, if done correctly, the foster parents have helped you find a job, saved up, and they'll stay in contact with you. And there's supposed to be resources available to you for like Section 8 metropolitan housing and things like that. Then you have the ones that age out with families that care. More than likely, they'll go on to college, and they help them set up, you know, financial aid to go proceed. And then there's the kids that the families didn't care. It was a paycheck option. They never prepared the kid, such as myself. You know, I would have been one of those kids, because none of my foster parents, except for the ones that tried to adopt me, really ever wanted to do anything for me. I aged out as an adult, as a runaway.
Right.
So, you know,
and Alan,
I didn't have anybody. But
Alan,
foster children that, did you say something, Jeremy?
Yeah, I just need you to also keep track of the private chat, because there's questions that are being asked to follow up with that.
I'm talking about aging out of state care. So when you age out of state care, there's supposed to be a pilot, you know, or a plan in place to help children age out. My son right now, the plan for him was at 16 years old. They got him into independent living. So just a little back history. My son, I've tried to get custody of him. He was with his mom his entire life, and he won't let me. He chose foster care over coming to me because of, you know, 13, 14 years of lies from his mom. You know, she's a crazy person. But then she left him on a beach in Puerto Rico, and he went into foster care, and he's been there since then. But but he had an option to come to my home. I would love him to come to my home. But they kept him in group homes and foster homes until he turned 16. At 16, they gave him the ability to go into an independent living program where the state owns the apartment building, and they let the kids move into it, and they have to pay rent. They have to get a job, pay rent. It's not very much, but it's enough to show them responsibility. They do get like some state benefits, like some EBT, and that's supposed to help them prepare to be 18. Now, when that option is not available, kids will stay in care of a foster parent, and it's kind of up to those foster parents and that kid what kind of preparation you're going to take. If you did well in school, you might try to go towards college. If you kind of was like me and I was intelligent enough to say fuck it all and got a GED at 15 years old, I did that. I was 37 when I got my degree from college. I took a year or two, but yeah. So it all depends on the person and the family that person gets involved in. Most experiences is kids age out and they're immediately homeless.
Right.
They try to reach out to so the first thing that they gave my one of my brothers. So one of my brothers went back into foster care because his adoptive parents they passed away. So he aged out. He only had to do a year of foster care. And what they did was they gave him a packet. What is the adult age where Alan is? Oklahoma, so in Ohio it's 18. I think it's 18 across the board, everywhere you go. But so they gave him a packet that had all the state programs, and it was a broad thing. If you was a battered women's crisis center, they would give you the same thing and had all the same information. It was all the state programs to help fight homelessness. And then and they gave me the number to 211, which is United Way. So basically they kicked me out the door, or not me, I keep saying me. They kicked my brother out the door with the United Way. Now my brother, he immediately went to prison. Right. He got with the wrong crowd because he had nowhere to go. He was sleeping on people's couches. He was at a house party asleep. Towards the end of it, somebody, whatnot, things happened. He ended up getting the blame for it because he was the guy sleeping on the couch, and the people that lived there didn't want to take responsibility. Drugs and prison is where he went. Yeah. I see a lot of people that age out of foster care head towards drug and alcohol dependency, and human trafficking. And they'll traffic themselves just to survive.
Yeah, so, to survive, exactly.
Right, and I see that a lot more with women, but then in today's society, it's a lot more accepted for men, to go out there and do their thing.
But also a problem is with majority of kids who are in the foster system, or anyone who's experienced trauma or drug abuse. You're mentally arrested at that age, you're developmentally arrested at that age. And so I'll first feel like I'm fucking 16 in my head, because that's when majority of my trauma and drug use really started. And so for kids who had abuse at 5, 6, 7, they will emotionally be at that level forever unless they get the therapeutic help they need. And so to be thrown out in a society without anyone with the mental capacity of a 10-year-old, emotionally, that's terrifying.
Well, you don't get to develop as an individual so much, right? Because and this is actually something Detroit Soloist, you asked this earlier, and this is the answer I had. I think I was in the back room or something maybe, but at 18 years old, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, as far as being an adult now. Before I was 18, people kind of, and if I fell on hard times, I worked full time, I had an apartment, but there were times when, I didn't have enough and work was slow, especially through the winters. And I depended on people. So, I needed help from people, and people took pity on me because I was a kid, and they was like, okay, yeah, and bought me a burger. But at 18 years old, when that was no longer something I could have in my tool belt to help survive, one of the things that I did was I latched on to inappropriate relationships. Yeah. I got with a girl that I thought would accept immediately everything that was wrong with me. And I stuck with that. And I was like, my father was murdered when I was an infant. I never knew my dad. I told myself, and because of that, all the dominoes fell into effect. My mom had tons of kids, but tons of guys. So there was never a social order to a family unit. And I told myself at 18, I'm going to find a woman. I'm going to marry her. I'm going to hold on as tight as I can. I'm going to have my own family. I'm going to do all the right things. I joined the military because I didn't know what else to do, you know, as an adult. What do you do when you're you know, you got a GED and you're 18 and your girlfriend says, "Oh, I'm pregnant." I'm like, "Well, we're getting married and we're gonna have the perfect life, and I'm gonna join the military." But you know.
Okay, I wanna just go back. Let's go back a little bit here, and for the people that are listening, the people that are watching, we have some people that are like sitting back and they want to join in, and so I want to kind of like come back to the subject at hand, especially for those that are just now coming on because they're seeing us, and so I want to kind of stick to the title here about adoption, and I love Alan's stories because he's so graphic and he knows exactly what he felt, how it felt, and we as adopted people, we know that. We know exactly what we've been through. We don't forget anything, you know. So with that said, I want to just go around on the panel, and whoever else is listening, please chime in, please. And my question is, so moving forward, what would you say to a woman or a couple or even a family that was going to adopt today or tomorrow? So that person that's out there that's wanting to adopt a child tomorrow, what words of either encouragement, your pros, your cons, or whatever, what would you say? Let's start with you, Caitlin.
I don't. Can you come back to you, please?
Absolutely, we sure will. YouTube watcher, are you with us? Okay, let's go to Krista. Krista.
Yeah, I'm sort of, kind of. I'm sorry, I'm doing
that's okay.
stuff at the moment.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Krista, if there was a couple or even a single parent or a family comes together, say tomorrow, and they've been thinking of adopting, what words of encouragement or pros and cons, or what would you have to say to this person about adoption? And
that's a good one. I would have to say, don't try to make them feel special by singling them out. You know, like how you said, like last night you said, don't say, "We love you also." Just say, "We love you." We don't need the extra clarifier because that makes us start to go, okay, why are they saying also? You know, that's one bit of advice I would have. Don't expect the adopted child to act and behave and react the same way that your other kids would. Because we don't think the same way. And definitely don't lie to them. If they ask you, even if they're really young, don't say, "Oh no, you're ours, you're ours." Go ahead and just tell them, "You're adopted. This is the story," and then just be honest with them from day one when they start asking.
Okay, and Nina,
it should not be a big secret.
Right. I agree, 100%. Nina, what advice or, you know, what would you say?
Yeah, I think that, well, first off, never lie to the kid about it. Always be straight up and honest, but also they have to expect that at some there will be some amount of trauma, regardless of how smooth the adoption was, how young the child was, and how great the adoptive family is. There will still be that hole of I was unwanted in some way. And knowing, and I feel like a lot of adoptive parents will like take that on in them and kind of forget about them, as my parents did. And but it's very much so like I've always had that hole now, and I always try to fill it, and when I was younger, I tried to fill it with drugs and toxic relationships, and just making sure that that child feels loved no matter what circumstances or what they're feeling or how they're showing their feelings.
All right. YouTube watcher, I see you up there at the top. What would be your words of encouragement or advice or the pros and cons of if someone were to go adopt tomorrow?
Well, it's the same thing I said last night. You know, I would discourage them to pick their brain and make sure, because it's not an easy thing to deal with, you know, and they've got to be ready for it and understand what they're getting into. And it would be preferable if they were adopted, at least one of the parents, so that, I don't know, that would be a big help, you know?
Yeah.
You know, that way it feels more like family, even if it is a you know, patchwork family of sorts. You know.
Do you guys think that there's, I'm sorry, do you guys think that there are enough books or information out there that the adoptee parents could maybe read about or educate themselves? Because something seems to be missing. I read that that message right there, and I'm gonna interrupt myself to say this. Our goal today definitely isn't to badger the biological parents at all. And so I want to put that out there for anyone that has given their child up for adoption for whatever reason that you had. We get it, and so this is definitely isn't about bashing. Actually, and here comes the ironic part. You guys have to remember though, the adoption isn't about you. The adoption isn't about the biological parents. The adoption is about us. And so we're not bashing you, but we're definitely expressing our feelings today of how we felt then, how we felt at Caitlin's age, how we felt at Jeremiah's age, Nina's age, Alan's age, and at my age. And I'm further up the road, and I don't feel any better or any different. So no, this isn't to bash the biological parents at all.
Detroit, I took that comment as for the adopted parents not to bash the bio parents. That's the way I took that.
Yeah. See, I'm sorry, what did you say?
I took that comment as they're saying for the adopted parents not to bash the bio parents.
Oh, absolutely. Either way, I don't think that the biological parents and the adopted parents shouldn't have anything to do with this. And so I guess I'm gonna start to sound a little selfish here, but at the end of the day, it's not about the adopted parent. It's not about the biological parent. It's about the adoptee. It's about the adoptee. And nobody asked us about how we felt moving forward. And you know, I mean, you can't make it. See, here's the thing. It's like it's a bittersweet thing. You can't make us love you no more than we wanted to always feel that love. There's a two-way street thing here. So it's not about them or us, or them and the biological parents or the adopted parents.
That's a whole nother emotional realm there.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. It really is. And you can, and I thank you, YouTube. You can see that I'm getting, like, I felt like you just turned on the stove and put the pot on.
Yeah.
That did something. I'm gonna have to sit back for a minute. I have to sit back for a minute because I'm real clear that.
So, back to what you were asking earlier a little bit ago. One thing that parents need to know, if they're going to adopt someone, the adopted kid, right, is going to need a lot more, and as selfish as it sounds, they're going to need a lot more loving and a lot more caring than what a regular child would.
Yeah, because you got to make up for the two parents who threw them away in the first place.
Exactly.
Can I also make a comment on that?
Yes.
All right. So I wanted to go back to your question about advice to parents, and I might make, a very, this is very controversial. So, I have adopted brothers and sisters. I've been around adoption my entire life. But and if I was to give advice to a prospective adoptive parent, it depends on what parent you're looking at. So today, adoption looks so much different. 2 women can adopt a child. 2 men can adopt a child. Interracial adoptions, biracial adoptions. There's a lot more to it. And my biggest thing that I've seen, like I have really good, loving Mormon friends that they have adopted African American children, and they love their children. But now, without giving any names, one of those people, their daughter is now in high school, and her group of friends is not the group of friends that family thought that she would gravitate towards, because they didn't raise her not to be around Black people, but they kind of raised her to be around them. So now there's conflict in their family because she is hanging out with these friends of hers from school. Their families are like, just now discovering that her parents are white. They've been talking to her like, kind of bashing white people. She kept it inside, didn't tell them her parents was white. She went home to her white family and lived and existed with them, and it ate at her until they've recently had an explosion in their family of the dynamic.
Hold on for 1 second. Alan, because I like the subject that you're on. And that's actually about 3 or 4 questions down. So we're going to get into that because that has to do with interracial adoption. We haven't gotten there yet. So just hold on. I want to stay on this one subject here, and I need everybody to give some advice to a person that would be adopting tomorrow.
Right. That's what I'm saying is,
so just what would it be like? Would it be to, just give me like one answer so that so everybody can get a chance here and we move on to this next question? Because what you're saying is good, but it's going into something that we're going to be talking about in about 20 minutes from now. And I don't want to get mixed up in that.
Well,
the main, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You had a thought.
Well, I was just going to say the main thing I think needs to happen with adoption parents are being psychologically vetted, not just financially. And it's more like they go through the amount of vetting. Like if you're going to get a dog, oh, you have a great place, you look pretty stable, you got a car, you got some money. Are you mentally stable to take a child in and raise them as your own? Because my mom sure as hell wasn't. From the outside, picture damn perfect, but inside she was a fucking wreck. And so
I agree with that.
Psychologically vetting, they need some sort of psyche valve to be able to.
They do.
I think anyone having a kid should have a psyche valve, but definitely with adoption.
So I think getting back to that question is, if I was to have a friend come to me today and say, well, I want to adopt, what would be your advice? I would say be careful about future dynamics. People live in the now, and they don't live for at the age 10. They don't live at age 16. For these kids, they don't consider that. Controversial dynamics in families. Like I was saying, interracially, male, female, and that would be my advice to it is, if you're going to choose a child that, that you can love, and that you understand that the dynamics may change over time.
Good answer. Caitlin.
The dynamic will change over time.
Yeah.
There's controversial dynamics that, sometimes you just aren't qualified to meet.
Okay, we're gonna give Caitlin a chance to either respond or Did you kind of like? Did you come up with anything, Caitlin? That because you're younger, and I like your answers are fresh right now. I've been digging in this hole for a long time. So
yeah, we're already jaded. We've been
we're
festering
very
on our answers. Yeah.
So at this time, what advice would you give? Say like if somebody came to you and said, Caitlin, we're young parents, we're 25 years old, we're thinking about adopting a kid. What advice would you think about giving to them?
I think it's like they need to like learn about the child's background a bit more, so when they're older they can like have the answers. Because I've recently been asking loads of questions like, who's my dad? Where, like, who are my parents? Why was I given up? And stuff like that. But my birth parents don't have the answers. They just gave me the documentation, like, here, read that. But that's not really helpful.
More family history. That's a really good
So
one. History.
Hold on. So let me ask you guys. Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on, you guys. Okay.
Yeah, good deal. Keep it in the family.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to be getting off here. I got to go take my kid's iPad from her and make sure she goes to bed. So it was a very wonderful conversation with you guys. I could go on this conversation for the next 18 hours.
Yeah.
So,
well, we appreciate you, Alan, very much.
Alan, and we would love you to continue going on and on and on and on. I think he's going to be doing this panel again in the future. So it seems to have been pretty successful so far.
We definitely want you a part of this. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best for your journeys and your experiences, and love and hope the best for everybody. So you guys have a good night.
Thanks so much. So now moving forward, if anybody needs to take a break or you want to stretch or anything like that, or maybe even I don't know. I'm just gonna throw this out at you.